Let me first acknowledge and congratulate our three new members of the House of Representatives, April Delaney, Sarah Elfreth, and Johnny Olszewski. We're very proud to have them part of the Maryland Congressional Delegation. I might point out that we are excited not only with that, but excited about the unity in our congressional delegation. We had this meeting in order to review some of the key issues that are affecting our state. I want to start off by thanking President Biden for bringing forward a disaster relief package that was announced today, $100 billion package. It specifically will help deal with the recovery from the tragedy that occurred with the Francis Scott Key Bridge in March of this year. In the request, there's $8 billion that would go into the emergency relief program, the program that funds the rebuilding of the Francis Scott Key Bridge, with the request for the administration to pass legislation that we have all co-sponsored, the Bridge Act, that would provide for 100% federal reimbursement for the cost of rebuilding the bridge. That is a very high priority. We had a chance to review that with our new members, and I can tell you there's total unity in supporting the President's efforts to get the emergency supplemental done in the lame duck session. Obviously, it will provide relief for disasters around this country. It also provides money for the U.S. Coast Guard. It provides money for the Army Corps of Engineers and the Department of Labor in costs associated with what happened with the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. So there's funds in there for all those programs, critically important for the recovery in the state of Maryland and in our region as a result of the tragic episode with the Francis Scott Key Bridge. We also went over a lot of other issues that are important to our delegation. We went over issues from the Chesapeake Bay to some of the appropriation issues. But the one issue that I just want to concentrate on is our federal workforce and the budgets for our federal agencies, many of which are located in the state of Maryland. The Maryland Congressional Delegation has always supported and strongly supported our federal workforce in regards to making sure they have adequate personnel and resources to carry out their critically important work, and that they have the protection of the civil service and they're not politicized. We recognize that is going to be an issue in this next Congress, and we are united as a delegation to make sure that we do what's right to protect our federal workforce and the important work that they do. There are a lot of other issues we talked about, but at this point, in order to have an opportunity for my other colleagues to talk about some of the other issues, let me turn it over to Senator Chris Van Hollen.
Well, I want to start by echoing, underscoring what Senator Cardin said about welcoming our new members. All of our returning members are grateful to have them on board, and I also do want to thank those members who are not running for re-election, who are here. Dutch Ruppersberger, thank you for all your service, and to Ben Cardin, of course, who brought us together today, just as he has on so many times in the past, to work as Team Maryland. And we are determined to keep Team Maryland together. And one of the things that has characterized Team Maryland is making sure that we all work for every part of the state. Because if you're one congressional district, you're stronger when other members of the delegation are fighting for you. And so it's sort of one for all and all for one. And that's the same approach we take, or should take as a country, to disaster assistance. Right? The Maryland delegation has always supported other states in their hours of need, whether it was hurricanes, forest fires, and we expect and hope the rest of the country to support us now when it comes to replacing the Key Bridge. And I also want to thank President Biden for the emergency supplemental he submitted today with the funds in the emergency relief program for the Key Bridge, among other national priorities going forward. I really want to just echo one other point that Senator Cardin made with respect to federal employees. I remember Senator Sarbanes always used to say that a merit-based civil service is a really important national asset. If you look around the world where their government offices are staffed simply by political people, they're ramped with corruption and cronyism. And we've had a long-time merit-based civil service in the United States of America. That federal government has served people well. They come in and they respect the views of whoever the executive is. They also respect the Constitution of the United States. And so it would be a huge mistake for anybody to try to replace political cronies whose only loyalty is to one person, to replace federal employees with those individuals. And so we're going to be working together on those and many other important priorities. The FBI decision has been made by the GSA. It's coming to Greenbelt, Maryland, and we're going to fight to make sure that we implement that along with a number of the other priorities that you'll hear about from some of our colleagues. But Team Maryland is alive and very well. We're going to be working very closely together and appreciate all that our retiring members have done to maintain that solidarity. We intend to keep the spirit going. So let me turn it back over to Senator Cardin.
The Dean of our delegation, Congressman Steny Hoyer.
Thank you very much, Senator Cardin, Senator Van Hollen. They talked about the issues that we're going to confront. But we in Maryland confronted an issue in November, and we were extraordinarily successful. We were a delegation of 10 people that shared one thing in common. We were all males. That was not a representative delegation. We now have an extraordinarily broad representation from all of Maryland, and I am so happy about that. 3 of our 4 new members are women. Somebody I'm very close to, Angela also Brooks, could not be here. Sheila O'Connell is here, who was the manager of her campaign. Sheila, congratulations to you. Congratulations, because Angela also Brooks will bring to the Senate not only a representation from the state of Maryland, but also a representation of people who have not been represented very often in the United States, and that's women of color in the United States Senate. She's going to be an extraordinary asset. And then we have, and I'll go in order of districts, Sarah Elfreth from the 3rd district, part of which her Senate district was in my district, and somebody who is no stranger to the House of Representatives and who chaired the spouses group when her husband, John Delaney, was a member here. And April Delaney is going to be a very strong part of our delegation. April, congratulations to you. Sarah, congratulations to you. And then another extraordinary new member of our delegation who's been in the House of Delegates, is a PhD, county executive of Baltimore County, brings some extraordinary experience from the local, state, and now the federal level to our delegation, Johnny Olszewski. Johnny, good to have you with us. We have a new president. He has started out, in my view, very badly in sense of responsibility and doing what's best for America. Maryland is a relatively small delegation, but it is a very involved delegation, a very active delegation. We suggest that we punch above our weight, and we will have our work cut out for us in making sure, as Chris Van Hollen and Senator Van Hollen, Chris Van Hollen, Senator Van Hollen, and Senator Cardin pointed out, of not having the civil service, which is the pride of this country and one of, if not the best in the world. Why? Because it is a civil service of merit, not of political alliances or political hacks or political favors. It is a civil service sworn to uphold the law and to carry out the policies on behalf of the American people. We're going to deal with those issues. We're going to deal with the FBI. We're going to deal with the tragic event that happened in Baltimore at the Francis Scott Key Bridge. I applaud the President for coming forward with a robust assistance to local communities for the tragedies that have occurred, either natural or, as in the case of Francis Scott Key Bridge, not so natural. So we are joined by 3 extraordinarily capable, experienced people, and a United States Senator who also has been a county executive. So they know how to get things done. And I want to say how proud I am to be co-represented with Glenn Ivey. How sorry I am that Dutch Ruppersberger is going to be retiring. Former chairman of the Intel Committee and my colleague on the Appropriations Committee. Dutch, thank you so much for the work you have done. And then the chairman of one of the most important committees in the Congress, Jamie Raskin, and his oversight committee. And did I miss anybody? Oh, right behind me, Kweisi Mfume, who is a senior member of the Congress of the United States and one of the most respected members of our delegation. So we're going to have our work cut out for us, for America, for the kind of America that we want to see, an America that provides opportunity, equality of treatment, and of a bright future for all of our people, which is, by the way, what we did in the 117th Congress, one of the most productive Congresses, and I've been here since 1981, that I have served in. A Congress for the people. Let us hope that the people will be served in this upcoming Congress and that we can work constructively with the new president toward that end. Thank you very much, Ben.
We're going to miss Dutch Ruppersberger. We're going to miss John Sarbanes and David Trone. They've done incredible service to the people of Maryland and our nation. All have contributed greatly to the strength of our country. But we are extremely excited about the new members of our congressional delegation, starting with Senator-elect Olszewski. I must tell you, I am so relieved and excited that she will be following me in the United States Senate. I had no doubt, but it's always good to see the election results. She's going to be an incredible force in the United States Senate, and will carry on, I think, the great tradition of unity within our congressional delegation. Now let me bring up the representative-elect from the 6th Congressional District, April Delaney.
So thank you, Senator Cardin, and all of it. I just have to say, I'm humbled and grateful to be here today to represent the 6th Congressional District as an new elected member. But what is really incredible about the state of Maryland is the depth and breadth of expertise that is brought in by all of these members. And if you look at how long they've served and the departing members and what they have contributed across the state, and as I look at particularly Senator Cardin and Dutch Ruppersberger here, who has just given so much in terms of what they've done, I just want to say that Team Maryland really is an incredible place to be a part of because they care deeply about public service. They care deeply about the well-being of all of those who live within the state. And I have to say that it is something in terms of putting, as I often say, what I ran my campaign on is putting people and progress over partisanship. And as you see this partisanship that is that could be evolving on the opposite side of the aisle in the next administration. I do, having just served most recently the Biden administration at the Department of Commerce, I'm so proud of many of the government workers that are there, that many of them are overworked and under-resourced, but who do it because they care about our country, they care about being subject matter experts, and they care about lifting up in public service. but all of the things that we will continue to fight for in terms of infrastructure, in terms of different community project funds, but also in terms of uplifting many of the priorities set forth in the President's budget today. I just am humbled and gratified to be a part of this delegation and look forward to working with all of them in the days ahead. So thank you.
The representative-elect from the 3rd Congressional District, which is my old congressional district, so we take a great deal of pride in the 3rd Congressional District, Sarah Elfreth.
Thank you, Senator. I'm so, like April, grateful and humbled to be here. We weren't elected even 2 weeks ago, and we have been in Washington this last week learning our jobs, building our teams, and I feel so relieved to be a part of Team Maryland. Many of our colleagues coming in from different states do not have this team mindset. They don't benefit from the wealth of experience this delegation brings. We punch far above our weight. And of course, the road ahead will not be smooth. We know that. If that's the only thing we know that. But we also know that when we are together as a full delegation, fighting not just for our priorities that you've heard of, but also for the values that Marylanders sent us here to fight for, I am just so relieved to be part of this team. And I'm excited to get started, which won't even wait before January 3rd. I'm grateful for Senator Cardin to bring us together to start this work today. That's what our constituents and Marylanders across the state deserve. Thank you.
Don't worry, I'm not going to speak. I'm going to introduce Johnny Olszewski. Johnny served the same job I had as county executive in Baltimore County. I think I've known him since he's 15. His father was a council member who was blue-collar, union guy, and it's a good family. It's a great person. So, Johnny, why don't you come up and say hello?
Thanks, Dutch.
Good. Okay, good.
Well, good evening. First, just want to acknowledge, mostly as a former American government and history teacher, how how much of an honor this is to feel like we're inheriting part of that sacred trust of American traditions and our history, and to be here. I'm grateful to be here alongside amazing new members and Representatives-elect Elfreth and Delaney. I also am excited for my colleague and friend in county government, Senator-elect Alsa Brooks. We are joining what has been said, and I would just like to echo an incredible Team Maryland. Senator Cardin, thank you for your leadership and service and for convening us. I want to acknowledge Representatives Trone and Sarbanes, but in particular I want to thank my congressman, my friend, my mentor, Dutch Ruppersberger, for his service and his leadership. It is an honor to follow in your footsteps, Dutch. Also excited about this entire team. We are ready to hit the ground running because we have an amazing team. I am prepared to fight for all of the interests of Maryland, and I'm grateful that this team has my back in our district. And so I want to also just, in particular, thank President Biden for the emergency supplemental relative to the Francis Scott Key Bridge. It's been something that we feel very personally, and we are excited to get to work to rebuild. But we know that it's not just in the interests of Baltimore or Maryland, that it's actually in the good and for the interest of our country to get that work done. So looking forward to hitting the ground running with an amazing team, and thank you for the honor. Thank you.
As Steny already pointed out, we're also joined by Representative Raskin and Mfume and Ivey. Are there questions? I might have other colleagues come up and then try to answer some of your questions if we have specific questions. Yes.
You touched on what things going to happen with the funding for the bridge. Can you outline what the hopes are that will happen during the lame duck? Could it potentially be broken up into a separate piece of legislation or tacked on? What do you think is the likeliest road to getting there?
And I'll respond briefly. Then, if one of my other colleagues want to respond on that, Congressman Mfume, who's been deeply engaged on this issue since day one, and has had conversations with the Speaker of the House about this. We in the Senate, Senator Van Hollen and I have worked very closely with the chairs and ranking members of the Environment and Public Works Committee and Appropriations Committee for their support. We're looking for the appropriate vehicle. We've been told frequently if there's an emergency supplemental relief bill, that would be the best vehicle to use. We are agnostic as to which vehicle it is. We want to get it on a vehicle, so we will be very flexible as to how we can get this done. I point out that Maryland already qualifies for emergency relief for the Francis Scott Key Bridge, so we are already qualified. We are receiving funding. That has not been slowed down at all, but it would be a relief to get the 100% clarified in this legislation, and we will push for that, as well as to make sure there's adequate funds in the emergency relief program to deal with not only the Francis Scott Key Bridge, but other disasters around the nation. Congressman Mfume?
As a lot of you know, we have been on this issue since that week in March when the bridge came down. Johnny O and I, and working with both of our senators, always had this as a priority. And so I would be remiss if I did not thank the bipartisan effort so far of the Appropriation Chair Tom Cole, the Ranking Member Rosa DeLauro, and to some extent Speaker Johnson, who I've spoke to about this twice. When I leave here, I'm going on the other side of the Capitol to make sure that the comments that I read earlier, which seemed to be quite favorable from him in terms of the President's appropriation, are in fact favorable for all disasters, including our dear bridge in Baltimore. I can't tell you how much this means to the men and women who work there on the docks, to all the small businesses that depend on it, to the communities of Dundalk and Turner Station, which abut it, and to everyone in our state who's come to see that bridge as a cathedral there in the water, pretty much in the spot where Francis Scott Key began writing and contemplating the Star-Spangled Banner. So I am hoping that, as Senator Cardin says, this is a supplemental, although, like he, I don't want to dictate to the Speaker or to the Senate how it should be proposed. But I got the President on record, as most of you. He's kept his word, and I'm very, very appreciative of that. Thank you.
I do want to point out that we've had the strong unity in our state from our local officials, including Mayor Scott and County Exec Pittman, and County Exec Olszewski has been right in the middle of all of our discussions, and great unity in Baltimore County as well as Anne Arundel County and Baltimore City. Sure, and I will answer that question. I'll be glad to do it, but I'm going to give the opportunity for questions that may be related to the Maryland Congressional Delegation. Are there other Maryland Congressional Delegation questions? Yes.
We've heard a lot from the incoming administration about government efficiency, some other ways of shrinking the federal government. Is there a level of concern about the level of reduction of the federal workforce?
Perfect question for Congressman Raskin.
Thank you, Senator Cardin. So the Trump administration introduced their Schedule F idea at the very end of his first term in office. And since then, we've heard even more plans to, for example, replace 50,000 professional civil service workers with political appointments. That's the Project 2025 plan. So there's tremendous concern in all of our districts about what looks like a full-fledged assault coming on the professional civil service. And as Steny says, this is, this is really the greatest national federal workforce on earth that we have in America, and the principal characteristic of it is that it's a meritocracy. People get hired by virtue of their ability to do an excellent job, not by virtue of their political party affiliation or their willingness to subscribe to a particular political program. That's not how the civil service works. The president's job itself is to take care that the laws are faithfully executed. Those are the laws that are adopted by Congress the people's representatives. So we do have a concern about growing signs that there will be an assault on the federal workforce and on the professional civil service. And the members of this delegation stand absolutely united in defending federal workers against unjust attacks on their integrity, on the hiring process, and on the security of their jobs.
Representative Ivey?
Well, just briefly on the civilian employees. I mean, this is an issue that dates back more than 100 years here in the United States. What Trump is proposing is something that the United States abandoned more than a century ago because of how it failed. And I think we've got an outstanding and talented civilian service group of employees. We need to hang on to those. The federal government should not be some sort of employment plan for Donald Trump's, loyalty people. And I think we've seen, based on the nominees he's sent down so far this week, that he's not the best guy to make those picks to start with. So hopefully we'll be able to push this back and make sure that we protect civil servants, because they're the ones that do the best job of carrying out the work on behalf of the American people.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.